Well, welcome everybody. We come to the Inspiration Bite Size once again, and this time I have Tom Bell, who is a councillor from Southampton, with me. What we are looking at, Tom, is just unpacking the kingdom. What is it to be a Christian in the community, serving the community in business, in different areas of life, different walks of life. And we've come to you because you're involved in an area, certainly geographically, but also politically, but many of us aren't involved. So if I can just start off with, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're involved with.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks first of all, Mike, for inviting me to chat with you and with your church family today. So my name's Tom. I live in Southampton. I've been in Southampton since 2011 when I moved over to study at the university. I'm married to Jenna. We got married 3 or 4 months ago, literally a week after the lockdown ended. So our original wedding date was just before the lockdown ended, and we managed to get married on the 11th of July. So yeah, I live in Southampton, married to Jenna. I grew up over on the Isle of Wight, just a few miles away. My dad is a pastor of a church there in Ryde, so I grew up in a Christian home, and which was a huge blessing. I think, you know, the greatest gift that a family can give someone is to introduce them to the Lord, and that's certainly something that I'm eternally grateful to my family for. Every year as a family, we would head up to the Cllr convention, which is a Christian convention up in the Lake District each year, and I remember around the age of 14, sitting in one of the youth sessions there, hearing someone explain how Jesus fulfilled all of these prophecies in the Old Testament about what the Messiah would be like. And it just struck me, probably for the first time actually at that moment, that Jesus was a real figure in history who I had to contend with and form a judgment about, but also that he expected a personal response of faith and repentance from me. So I became a Christian at the Cllr convention when I was 14. So I've been a Christian for about 13 years now.
And church-wise, you go to Christ Church in Southampton, which is a fairly newish plant,
Yeah.
I gather. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a small gathering in Southampton that has existed for around 10 years or so, 10 or 11 years. And in 2011, a new pastor came along with a slightly larger revitalization team. That was the year that I came to Southampton as well. And since then, the Lord has really blessed that ministry by providing us with lots of students who we've been able to train up in discipleship, and lots of young families as well. So it's been a huge joy to be part of Christ Church Southampton over the last 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, just for the benefit of those who are listening, and certainly from the southwest of England, and maybe not know Southampton that well, I think Southampton population-wise is probably very similar to Plymouth, and probably sort of demographically probably similar as well. But you decided to become a city councillor, and I think it's always quite interesting when the Lord puts something on somebody's heart to do something, and quite often you think, I'll step out in that and do it. The only thing is, if you're going to be involved in politics, not only do you have to step out and do it, but you've actually got to persuade the electorate to vote for you as well. So how did you get involved in politics and becoming a councillor?
Well, I mean, the more I reflect upon it, the more there's many ways of answering that question. And in lots of ways, the journey started right back as a child. When I was growing up, around the dinner table as a family, we would pretty much day in, day out talk about weighty issues, matters of faith, of theology, of discipleship, evangelism, but also matters of current affairs, politics, and so on. And so I've always been imbued with a sense of responsibility and meaning and purpose in relation to public life. And I thank my family a lot for that, in particular my dad. Going to university, I was exposed to a really broad range of ideas, and found that it was a great platform to engage in debate with people, to try to understand the full spectrum of political ideas that are out there. And I really relished that. I found that it was hugely interesting, and it stirred a lot of my interest in politics. I got in touch with a local councillor in my third year at university, helped him out a little bit with one of his campaigns, and just found myself getting to know a lot of the other members and councillors at quite a good social level. And time passed, I found myself getting more drawn into participating in policy development and in campaigning. And I was encouraged to stand as a local councillor in 2018.
And obviously you got elected, which is do you well done for that one, and I should say congratulations on your wedding as well. So
Yeah.
then so do you, on the council, do you have any particular interests, anything that maybe planning or children's work or?
Yeah, so for the first 18 months or so, I sat on the health overview and scrutiny panel, which was a privilege. I've been on the overview and scrutiny panel for a couple of years now, which is probably my favourite. It's the most interesting. Lots of the high level strategic plans and big decisions come through overview and scrutiny. And then I've sat on planning and other panels on an ad hoc basis. I guess they're sort of my main formal roles. I guess informally, because of the nature of my professional work experience, I've taken a lead on digital transformation, IT investment and that kind of thing, because my background professionally is in technology. So yeah, I guess I'm contributing quite a lot to pushing forward a digital strategy that is able to leverage technology in order to remove expenses and in order to boost the quality of services for our users. Yeah, so they're probably my main areas of involvement.
You touched upon sort of your sort of work environment there. One thing I find, as I'm a borough councillor in West Devon, is that we're constantly being contacted by our IT department about cybersecurity, telling us, I mean, most emails sent to us are scanned and everything beforehand, and if it's probably the same with you and probably most councils, if something looks a bit dodgy, it doesn't actually get to you in the first place. So but you're actually involved in cybersecurity, and I know like cybersecurity is a massive thing, and I'm chairman of audit, and obviously as chairman of audit you're looking at obviously the finances of our council, but also the financial risks of our council, and the biggest risk, of course, for any council or any business is in the area of cybersecurity, that somebody are infiltrating your system. So just tell us a bit about how you're involved in cybersecurity.
Yeah. So I guess so my degree was in electronic engineering, but it had a focus on security. So I guess from that stage, I've been interested in cybersecurity. I spent a bit of time working for a couple of companies in the last few years, larger companies in cybersecurity. And I currently work for a consultancy in Hampshire, focused on, we're a consultancy across a broad range of areas, but have a particular level of expertise in cybersecurity. So I spend a lot of my time consulting with businesses and organisations on their digital resilience. I also do a part-time PhD over at the University of Southampton. That's just 1 day a week, and that's in cybersecurity as well, looking at ways of improving the effectiveness of cyber defences, in particular something called Cyber Essentials, which is a programme that the government runs. So I've got, it's a real passion of mine, but a real challenge, because by its very nature, we're constantly playing catch up. It's a battle between adversaries and malicious users and those seeking to defend digital systems, and it's an infinitely complex domain. So it's really challenging actually to stay on top of things. But as you say, it touches each and every one of us in a number of ways, such as phishing attacks, as you were referring to, and something that it's worthwhile being aware of.
Yeah, I remember it was about 2 or 3 years ago. We had some training on just cybersecurity, and they picked me as one of the guinea pigs, and they got me to send an email from my personal email address. It said, put any heading down and put anything in the body of the email.
Yeah.
And they came back within about a minute and said, can't tell you exactly what you said, but it was about Christmas. And it was. This was like in August. And I thought that was scary. That was, so just like, it's easy, Well, I was actually told that unless you have the right security in place, sending an email is like sending a postcard.
Yes.
Which is, I think most of us don't really appreciate and understand, although
Yeah.
it keeps getting hammered through to us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a Christian, you're involved in politics, you're involved in sort of cybersecurity, internet, computers, all sorts of things. I mean, what would you say were your underlying passions as a Christian?
I think in a most basic sense, I'm passionate about finding ways of helping people to make sense of the world that we live in. I think in so many ways, there's evidence that the world is quite clearly confused about who we are, about what life is for, about what really matters, and about how to live properly and to conduct ourselves properly in the world. And so I guess I'm in that most broad sense, I'm passionate about just helping people to grow in clarity and conviction and courage to live properly in the world. I guess specifically that means that I'm interested quite a lot in apologetics and evangelism, which I'm quite involved in through our local church, trying to understand for myself how the Bible can inform how I live, and in particular how the Bible can inform how I live my life in the political world. I think as well, I'm also passionate about using technology to help people to see how wonderful a servant technology can be to people. It really is such a gift that God's given us, the ability to use our minds to innovate and to solve challenges and to come up with tools which can make life more fruitful. And that's a huge blessing that I guess I'm trying to share with people, but also trying to warn people about the dangers of allowing technology to become our masters, which obviously we see evidence of around the world as well. The way that social media, for example, has such a hold over our minds. And I see that as a particular danger of the way that technology is growing in its influence over us. So that's something that I'm passionate about as well.
That's good. Thank you for that. So sort of coming to the end now, I mean, how would you see your relationship with Jesus impacting your daily walk in the things that you do? And can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah.
Big question, I know.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a broad question, but I think it's an important question to ask because as we know that the gospel is right at the heart of why Jesus came and what's revealed in the Bible. And so for me, daily repenting and confessing my sin and asking for forgiveness and living in the joy of knowing salvation is right at the heart of how I live in the light of the gospel. But also, as we know, the gospel transforms every area of life. It impacts the way that we see family life and politics and education and society and our responsibilities towards ourselves and towards others and towards God. And so I think that the main thing that I wrestle with each day is trying to bring the gospel to bear on the way that I live my life, particularly in work and in politics, and trying to demonstrate Christ-likeness when I'm speaking to people, to treat people with respect, to be able to forgive if people do wrong against me, and also having the humility to apologize when I get things wrong myself, which I think is another thing that that is lacking among those in public life. And I think it can be a really powerful witness when someone's able to demonstrate those qualities. And on the occasions where I've been able to do so, it's been a joy to explain why I'm able to live that way, and to explain to people how I've been forgiven by Christ, and how that enables me then to forgive others and to seek forgiveness from others.
Yeah, that's really good. That is really good, actually. Thank you for that. Yeah, so explains why you do what you do. Something I've asked everybody, well, I am asking everybody, is do you have a favourite song or a favourite hymn?
Yeah, I mean, I've got many favourite hymns. I think, lots of the classics, lots of the older hymns that have been sung through the generations, I find hugely encouraging, because in my mind I'm imagining people generations gone by singing exactly the same words, and a lot of the newer songs as well, that I find really touch home. I think probably "To God Be the Glory" is one of my favourites. It was one that was sung at our wedding a few weeks ago, and I find it really helpful in terms of calling my heart towards God, focusing my mind on the goal of giving him glory in the way that I live, and focusing my life's priorities on him. To God be the glory, definitely.
That's great, thanks. Yeah, I think I'm a bit like you, actually. I think it depends on what day of the week you ask me, and there's so many hymns and so many worship songs I just love, and and, you know, but we are asking people, and that's a tough one to sort of say which is your favourite, but then okay, well, that's it then, Tom. I think we got the end of our time, so I'd just like to say thank you so much for joining Inspiration for this talk.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll certainly be praying for you, and I'm sure we'll hear more from you, so so thank you so much.
Lovely.